When celebrity chef José Andrés agreed to cook with Meghan, he probably expected a normal collaboration. What he got instead was front-row seats to the most cringe-worthy cooking performance in television history.
He is a very dear friend, an incredible chef, and he just makes everything fun.
This wasn't just someone being inexperienced in the kitchen. This was someone desperately trying to convince a world-renowned culinary expert that they belonged in his league while consistently proving the exact opposite. The second-hand embarrassment was immediate and relentless.
You know, Meghan, the best way of cooking is by association.
From the moment Jose started sharing actual expertise, it became painfully clear we were watching someone who had no idea what they were doing try to keep up with someone who revolutionized modern cooking. Every interaction became a masterclass in how not to collaborate with a professional chef. The cringe factor went through the roof as basic cooking concepts were treated like groundbreaking revelations. Spanish phrases were butchered with confidence, and restaurant culture was explained to someone who literally owns dozens of establishments worldwide. Buckle up for 8 segments of pure cooking show catastrophe, where every attempt to appear competent only made the knowledge gap more painfully obvious. The first cringe moment began before José even arrived, when Meghan couldn't simply announce a cooking collaboration without immediately establishing her charitable credentials and positioning herself as someone who worked alongside the celebrity chef, rather than learning from him.
We've worked together for several years now because our foundation works with World Central Kitchen a lot.
Her emphasis on our foundation and the phrase "worked together for several years" was clearly designed to establish professional equality with Jose rather than acknowledging the reality that her foundation likely donated to his, while he did the actual humanitarian work. The phrasing suggested collaborative partnership rather than charitable support. The authority play intensified when she started describing José's work as if she had intimate knowledge of his operations and global impact, positioning herself as someone familiar with his professional activities rather than simply an admiring supporter.
And he is constantly off the grid, going to where he's needed the most, so it's always a treat.
Her commentary about him being constantly off the grid and framing his visit as him stopping by revealed someone trying to create the impression of ongoing professional relationship rather than acknowledging this was likely arranged television appearance. The casualness felt forced and performative, but the foundation name drop reached peak awkwardness when she seemed to believe that charitable connections qualified her to collaborate as an equal in the kitchen with someone who had revolutionized disaster relief through food service and built a culinary empire spanning decades.
It's always a treat when Jose is able to stop by for a visit.
The cringe became most obvious when she transitioned from discussing their supposed professional relationship directly into cooking preparation, as if charitable donations had somehow prepared her to work alongside one of the world's most accomplished chefs in his area of expertise. What made this foundation name drop authority play particularly uncomfortable was how it revealed someone who confused supporting good causes with possessing professional qualifications. Instead of humbly acknowledging the opportunity to learn from a master chef, she established false equivalency through charitable connections. The pattern was set from the opening moments. Every interaction would be filtered through claims of professional partnership rather than the obvious reality of someone completely out of their depth trying to keep up with genuine expertise. The foundation work became a shield for incompetence rather than simply being appreciated for what it was, charitable support for important causes. This opening gambit perfectly encapsulated what would become the episode's defining characteristic, someone desperately trying to establish credibility they didn't possess while the actual expert patiently worked around the performance to create something meaningful. The second major cringe moment emerged when José's natural Spanish heritage created an opportunity for Meghan to demonstrate her language skills, resulting in one of the most uncomfortable cultural performance attempts in recent television history. The disaster began when José mentioned his background from Barcelona and Asturias, which somehow triggered Meghan's need to establish her own Spanish credentials through what can only be described as linguistic name-dropping.
You know I used to live in Spain.
I know.
I spent more time in Argentina, funny enough. That's why I get embarrassed to speak Spanish in front of you, because I have such an Argentinian accent.
Her immediate pivot to discussing her time in Argentina revealed someone who couldn't simply listen to José's heritage without inserting her own international experience. The preemptive excuse about being embarrassed to speak Spanish actually drew more attention to her language abilities, while setting up expectations she was about to spectacularly fail to meet. The performance escalated when José graciously invited her to demonstrate her Spanish, creating the perfect setup for what would become a masterclass in secondhand embarrassment.
Hola, José, ¿cómo estás?
Hola, José, ¿cómo estás? ¿Todo bien?
Boom.
Her Spanish demonstration was a linguistic train wreck that combined questionable pronunciation with what appeared to be completely invented phrases. The confident delivery only made the butchered language more painful to witness, especially in front of a native speaker who was too polite to correct the obvious errors. But the disaster reached peak cringe when she continued the performance despite José's diplomatic response, seemingly unaware that her linguistic display was exposing rather than impressing.
You have a great accent.
Gracias.
José's gracious compliment about her accent showed professional courtesy in the face of what was clearly a challenging linguistic performance. His kindness only highlighted how uncomfortable the entire exchange had become, as viewers watched someone persist in demonstrating skills they clearly didn't possess. What made this Spanish language performance particularly painful was how it revealed someone so focused on establishing cultural credibility that they couldn't recognize when to stop. The performance continued well past the point of comfort, transforming what could have been a brief cultural connection into an extended demonstration of overconfidence meeting limited ability. The pattern was unmistakable. Instead of appreciating José's heritage and perhaps asking questions about Spanish culture, the focus immediately shifted to proving personal credentials through a performance that only emphasized the gap between claimed and actual abilities. The linguistic disaster perfectly encapsulated the episode's central theme of someone desperately trying to match expertise they simply didn't possess. The third cringe moment unfolded when Meghan attempted to demonstrate her deep connections to local suppliers, specifically with sea urchin diver Stephanie, only to reveal someone performing familiarity, rather than possessing genuine relationships with the community she claimed to know intimately. The performance began when José expressed enthusiasm about working with Stephanie, creating an opportunity for Meghan to establish her local credibility through supplier relationships that would quickly prove to be far more superficial than advertised.
I got these sea urchins from the harbor, went and talked to Stephanie.
Oh my God, Stephanie, is not she the great?
Her casual reference to going and talking to Stephanie was clearly designed to suggest an established relationship with this local supplier, but José's surprised enthusiasm about Stephanie being the greatest revealed someone who had genuine familiarity with the diver's reputation and work, making Meghan's claims feel performative by comparison. The knowledge claims intensified when she started making observations about Stephanie's business practices, as if she had intimate understanding of the local seafood industry, rather than simply having done basic research for the show.
And the business she has of always sustainable, never overfishing.
Her commentary about sustainability and overfishing practices sounded like someone repeating talking points rather than demonstrating deep knowledge of marine harvesting. The generic nature of her observations contrasted sharply with José's specific enthusiasm, highlighting the difference between performed and authentic familiarity. But the local supplier claims reached peak awkwardness when the actual interaction with Stephanie revealed someone meeting her for what was obviously the first time, despite the previous implications of ongoing relationship.
Hi.
Hi.
You must
How
be
are
Stephanie.
Yes.
Hi, Meghan. It's nice
to meet you.
The formal introduction completely undermined her earlier casual references to going and talking to Stephanie. The nice to meet you greeting exposed the relationship as a brand new television arrangement rather than the established local connection she had implied through her confident supplier knowledge claims. What made this local supplier performance particularly uncomfortable was how it revealed someone who thought basic research about local businesses qualified as intimate community connections. Instead of simply acknowledging she was learning about local suppliers for the show, she created false familiarity that was immediately exposed by the actual interactions. The pattern was becoming clear. Every claim to local knowledge or established relationships would be undermined by the obvious reality of someone discovering these connections for television rather than drawing from genuine community engagement. The supplier knowledge claims perfectly demonstrated how performed expertise consistently crumbled when confronted with actual evidence. The fourth cringe moment occurred when José began sharing fundamental cooking principles, only to witness someone treat elementary culinary concepts like groundbreaking discoveries, revealing a knowledge gap so vast it became painful to watch unfold in real time. The revelations began when José explained his philosophy of cooking by association, a concept so basic to professional cooking that most culinary students learn it in their first week, yet it was received as if he was sharing revolutionary wisdom.
You are associating them, boom. You got a great dish. You don't have to overcomplicate it.
Her enthusiastic response to this elementary principle revealed someone who had never encountered basic flavor pairing concepts, despite positioning herself as someone capable of collaborating with a world-renowned chef. The way she absorbed this information suggested she was discovering fundamental cooking principles for the first time. The cringe intensified when José explained the difference between anchovies and macarones, another basic culinary fact that any competent cook would know, yet was treated as fascinating new information rather than cooking fundamentals.
So you know the difference between boquerones and anchovies?
No, tell
It's
me.
the same fish.
Her admission that she didn't know this basic distinction was telling enough. but her excited, "Oh, I had no idea" response revealed someone who thought ignorance of fundamental ingredients was charming rather than recognizing it as evidence of serious knowledge gaps when cooking with a professional. But the basic cooking revelations reached peak awkwardness when she started making obvious observations about stock making, as if she was contributing profound insights to someone who had been creating complex broths for decades.
The foundation of anything is the most important part. When people are like, why did I just spend $2 extra for extra?
Her lecture about sauce complexity to José Andrés was perhaps the most tone-deaf moment of the entire collaboration. Here was someone explaining basic cooking economics and ingredient awareness to a chef who had revolutionized modern cuisine and understood sauce making at levels she couldn't even comprehend. What made these basic cooking concept revelations particularly uncomfortable was how they exposed someone who had convinced themselves that enthusiasm could substitute for knowledge. Instead of acknowledging her learning opportunity and asking informed questions, she treated elementary principles like personal discoveries while attempting to educate someone whose expertise dwarfed her own. The pattern was unmistakable. Every fundamental concept José shared would be received as revelation rather than recognized as the basic knowledge any serious cook should possess. The revelations perfectly captured the episode's central tragedy of someone so unaware of their limitations that they couldn't recognize when to listen instead of perform. The fifth cringe moment reached unprecedented levels when Meghan decided to lecture José Andrés about restaurant culture and staff meals, apparently forgetting she was speaking to someone who owns dozens of establishments worldwide and has revolutionized the industry she was attempting to explain to him. The catastrophe began when she couldn't simply acknowledge their plan to cook for the crew without positioning herself as an authority on restaurant operations and the cultural significance of family meals.
And because I like staff meal, team meal, I think it's one of the best parts about restaurant culture.
Her confident explanation of staff meal culture to José was breathtakingly tone-deaf. Here was someone lecturing a chef who had created restaurant empires across multiple countries about the cultural significance of feeding staff, as if this concept might be new to someone who had been running professional kitchens for decades. The lecture intensified when she started making philosophical observations about the heart and community spirit behind staff meals, apparently believing she was sharing profound insights with someone who had literally built his career on understanding food as community connection.
It's cooked with such heart and in the spirit of community as well, so.
Let's do it. It's plenty of cheese.
Her commentary about food being cooked with heart and spirit of community to José Andrés was perhaps the most patronizing moment of the entire episode. This was someone explaining the emotional and cultural significance of cooking to a chef whose humanitarian work had fed millions and whose restaurants were built on exactly these principles. But the restaurant culture lecture reached its most cringe-worthy peak when she seemed completely unaware that she was explaining basic hospitality industry concepts to someone who had revolutionized how restaurants operate and had received every major culinary award imaginable.
So thank you guys so much. We're so grateful. Cheers to all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you, Jose.
Even her eventual crew appreciation speech felt performative when delivered after spending the episode trying to establish authority over someone whose actual expertise in restaurant culture and team management far exceeded anything she could comprehend. The speech became another opportunity to position herself as the host, teaching everyone else about gratitude and community. What made this restaurant culture lecture particularly painful was how it revealed someone so disconnected from reality that they thought limited experience entitled them to educate genuine experts. Instead of recognizing the incredible opportunity to learn from someone who had shaped modern restaurant culture, she chose to perform knowledge she didn't possess. The catastrophe perfectly encapsulated the episode's most uncomfortable theme, someone so convinced of their own authority that they couldn't recognize when they were embarrassing themselves in front of people who actually knew what they were talking about. The lecture became a masterclass in how not to interact with genuine expertise. The sixth cringe moment emerged when Meghan attempted to demonstrate her knowledge of sea urchin preparation and marine biology, only to reveal someone who had clearly just learned basic facts moments before and was now presenting them as established expertise to someone with genuine culinary authority. The pretense began when she started confidently explaining sea urchin anatomy using terminology she had obviously just acquired from Stephanie, treating elementary marine biology as sophisticated knowledge she possessed.
And this is called Aristotle's lantern, she said.
Oh my God, you took a class in biology.
José's amused response about her taking a biology class perfectly captured the absurdity of someone presenting freshly learned terminology as personal expertise. His gentle mockery highlighted how obvious it was that she was simply repeating information she had just received, yet she seemed completely unaware of how transparent her performance had become. The expertise pretense intensified when she started making observations about sea urchin preparation techniques, as if she was contributing valuable insights to the process rather than simply following José's expert guidance.
I didn't do it right down the middle, unfortunately.
Her repetition of the Aristotle's lantern fact revealed someone so eager to demonstrate knowledge that she couldn't stop herself from showing off her newly acquired terminology, even when it added nothing to the actual cooking process. The repetition made her desperation for intellectual credibility painfully obvious. But the sea urchin expertise reached peak cringe when she started making philosophical connections between the food preparation and broader culinary concepts, as if her brief encounter with marine harvesting had provided deep insights into sustainable cooking.
This is why you understand why it's more expensive, too.
Yeah, it's the rigorous
the level
effort
of
that goes
labor.
through.
Her sudden appreciation for the labor-intensive nature of sea urchin harvesting felt performative rather than genuine. These were obvious observations that anyone would make after watching Stephanie's demonstration, yet she presented them as personal insights she was sharing with José rather than acknowledging she was simply processing new information. What made this sea urchin expertise pretense particularly uncomfortable was how it revealed someone who confused brief exposure to information with actual knowledge. Instead of appreciating the learning opportunity and acknowledging her novice status, she immediately began performing expertise that José could clearly see was completely superficial. The pattern was unmistakable. Every new piece of information would be instantly transformed into performed knowledge, rather than simply being absorbed as part of a learning experience. The pretense perfectly demonstrated someone so uncomfortable with not knowing that they couldn't allow themselves to be students in the presence of genuine masters. The seventh cringe moment occurred when Meghan attempted to demonstrate her wine expertise and local vineyard knowledge, only to reveal someone who had clearly done basic research but was performing sophistication that José could easily see through with his genuine understanding of wine culture. The performance began when she couldn't simply serve wine without establishing her credentials as someone knowledgeable about local viticulture and wine selection, despite being in the presence of someone who owned restaurants with world-class wine programs.
All these wines.
A winery just about 45 minutes north of here.
Santa Ynez Valley.
Her explanation of the local winery felt rehearsed and superficial, hitting obvious talking points about quality and locality without demonstrating any real understanding of what made this particular producer special. The phrase "which I know you love" revealed someone making assumptions about José's preferences based on generic wine appreciation rather than actual knowledge of his tastes. The wine knowledge performance intensified when she started making observations about the winemaking process and terroir that sounded like someone repeating information from a basic vineyard tour rather than demonstrating genuine understanding of viticulture.
I grow a lot of fruits, and the same sort of thing where it's really like chill and overcast throughout the morning.
Her attempt to connect her fruit-growing experience to winemaking revealed someone trying to establish agricultural credibility through tenuous comparisons. The casual way she discussed sugar and acid development showed someone who had heard these terms, but didn't really understand the complex chemistry behind wine production. But the wine performance reached peak awkwardness when she seemed to believe that selecting a local wine somehow demonstrated sophisticated understanding of food and wine pairing, especially when serving someone who had built restaurant empires with carefully curated wine programs.
This is going to be so good for the meal we're having.
Her confident assertion about wine pairing suitability felt particularly hollow when made to someone whose restaurants were known for exceptional wine programs. The generic enthusiasm about the pairing revealed someone who thought proximity and basic quality were sufficient criteria rather than understanding the complex interplay between wine characteristics and food flavors. What made this wine knowledge performance particularly uncomfortable was how it revealed someone who confused basic wine appreciation with sophisticated understanding. Instead of simply acknowledging she had found a nice local wine and asking José about his pairing preferences, she performed expertise that was obviously superficial compared to his professional knowledge. The pattern remained consistent. Every attempt to demonstrate knowledge only highlighted the gap between performed sophistication and actual understanding. The wine performance perfectly captured someone so uncomfortable with their limitations that they couldn't simply appreciate good wine without pretending to understand it at levels they clearly didn't possess. The eighth and final cringe moment culminated in Meghan's performative crew appreciation speech, which transformed what should have been genuine gratitude into another opportunity to establish authority and demonstrate her understanding of team dynamics to someone who had built his entire career on leading people. The theater began when she couldn't simply thank the crew without positioning herself as someone who understood the importance of team appreciation and workplace culture, apparently forgetting she was addressing these concepts in front of someone whose leadership had inspired global humanitarian efforts.
So, you guys all know, for 2 seasons, it's been amazing, incredible crew.
Her speech structure revealed someone who thought acknowledging hard work was a sophisticated leadership insight rather than basic human decency. The reference to discussing our love of family meal with José was particularly tone-deaf, suggesting she had been educating him about team appreciation concepts rather than learning from someone who had revolutionized workplace culture in the restaurant industry. The performance intensified when she started making connections between restaurant team meals and television production crews, as if this comparison demonstrated deep understanding of both industries rather than revealing someone making obvious parallels that anyone could observe.
And how the team makes it together, eats it together, works together, and that's what we've done.
Her explanation of team dynamics to a group that included José Andrés was breathtakingly presumptuous. Here was someone lecturing about collaborative work culture to a chef whose restaurants were built on exactly these principles and whose humanitarian organization had perfected team coordination under the most challenging circumstances imaginable. But the crew speech theater reached its most cringe-worthy conclusion when she seemed completely unaware that her performative gratitude was happening in front of someone whose genuine leadership and team appreciation had earned global recognition and countless awards.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you, Jose!
Her repetitive thanks felt hollow and theatrical compared to the natural way Jose interacted with everyone throughout the episode. The contrast highlighted the difference between performed appreciation and genuine leadership qualities, making her speech feel like someone playing the role of a gracious host rather than actually being one. What made this crew speech theater particularly uncomfortable was how it revealed someone who thought basic courtesy was sophisticated leadership, and that acknowledging obvious team contributions demonstrated management insight. Instead of simply expressing sincere gratitude, the speech became another performance designed to establish authority she didn't possess. The finale perfectly encapsulated the episode's central theme, someone so focused on appearing knowledgeable and authoritative that every interaction became a performance rather than genuine human connection. The theater continued until the very end, ensuring the cringe factor remained consistently high throughout the entire collaboration. Episode 8 of With Love Meghan proved that cooking with actual experts can expose limitations in the most uncomfortable ways possible. What should have been an incredible learning opportunity with celebrity chef José Andrés became a cringe compilation of someone desperately trying to match expertise they simply didn't possess. From foundation name-dropping to Spanish language disasters, from basic cooking revelations to restaurant culture lectures, every interaction revealed someone so uncomfortable with their limitations that they couldn't stop performing knowledge they clearly didn't have. José's professional grace only made the contrast more painful to watch. The tragedy wasn't that someone lacked culinary expertise. That would have been completely understandable and even endearing. The cringe came from watching someone refuse to acknowledge their learning opportunity, instead choosing to perform authority in front of someone whose actual accomplishments dwarfed anything they could claim. José Andrés has fed millions through disaster relief, revolutionized modern cuisine, and built restaurant empires worldwide. The appropriate response would have been humble curiosity and genuine questions. Instead, we got lectures about restaurant culture, wine expertise performances, and basic cooking concepts treated like personal discoveries. The most uncomfortable moments came when elementary principles were received as revelations, while simultaneously attempting to educate someone whose expertise was internationally recognized. The disconnect between claimed knowledge and demonstrated ability created television moments that were equal parts fascinating and deeply uncomfortable. So which cringe moment made you pause the episode? Was it the Spanish language disaster, the restaurant culture lecture, or maybe the sea urchin expertise pretense? Drop your thoughts below because honestly, watching someone try to match José's expertise while consistently proving they couldn't was television gold in the most uncomfortable way possible. Smash that like button if this breakdown helped explain why every interaction felt so painfully awkward. Subscribe because we've covered all 8 episodes of reality checking, and hit that notification bell because content like this proves that sometimes the most educational television comes from watching what not to do. The cringe compilation is complete, but the lessons in humility will last forever.